Thanks everyone for joining me for another episode of the Travel Collective, your photo travel guide, where I get to talk to authors, travelers, all kinds of amazing people. And recently I had the pleasure of meeting Veronique Holloway at Coppercat Books, so quick shout out to them. And I was introduced to her book, Ichabod's Curse Endures. And I am a slow reader, but this book immediately hooked me. And it takes place in upstate New York, so there's a lot to love about the book. And Veronique actually said she went back to New York to do some of the research. So, welcome, Veronique.
Thank you.
So, tell us about, did the story come first? Did the road trip come second? Where did the whole thing kind of come together?
Oh boy. Kind of a little bit of both. I was actually doing a trip. I had been to Sleepy Hollow before, went for a Halloween visit one year. And the next year I was going to Salem with my cousins on a girls' trip. And it was the year that Hocus Pocus came out. And so we were doing our homework and watching the movie and in preparation for our trip. And this was the second Hocus Pocus, of course, the one that just recently came out. And I had to rewatch the first one. And I love the idea of things being out of place in time. And that's one of the things I liked about that movie in particular was how the witches were from, whatever the 1700s or whatever it was. But then they find themselves in the modern era. And I was thinking about what other Halloween type stories could you do that with? And one thing led to another, and gave me the idea for Ichabod's Curse. And so I was writing it. I was doing a lot of other research. It's a historical fiction, so it is set during the end of the War of 1812. So I was doing research on that, and then I found a lot of places where my memory just wasn't quite serving me well by the time I got to writing it because it had been so long. So I decided I needed to do another trip and ended up taking a trip with one of my cousins. We went up on a separate occasion, and so that I could kind of do some more recent research and have a little bit of a fresher perspective in my mind and get some fresh take on it. And part of the story is also set in the modern era, so it's kind of a dual timeline story. Um, and so a lot of the events that are in the book are events that actually happen in the town, in the village, and in the surrounding areas. And so when I went there the first time, I didn't go. I was only there for a very brief visit. I was there for about half a day.
Oh,
So when
wow.
I went,
Yeah.
yeah, and I knew they had a lot of events. They had a Halloween parade and street festivals and the Great Pumpkin Blaze, which isn't actually in Sleepy Hollow. It's a little bit in an outlying town a little bit further away. So I wanted to be able to go and experience some of those so I could get a better feel for writing them. And I found while I was there that I got so many more ideas and so much more inspiration while I was there that I didn't expect. So it worked out really well to be able to go after having the idea.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And to go kind of at Halloween, since the original story, Headless Horseman, and just to get the feel of that whole kind of the present, but like how, like they do the walks through the old cemetery and stuff like that. So,
Yes, absolutely. I've been three times now, and all of them have been in October. So
oh, wow.
it's the perfect time of year to go. I highly recommend it.
Yeah. So, did you have unlimited time or did you have limited number of days? And how did you kind of plan out how to spend your time?
I did. So the first time, like I said, the trip was we were there for about a half a day. A friend of mine and I were doing a girls' trip to New York City, and it was an epic trip that we thought we'd probably never be able to do again. So we were in New York City for about 2 weeks,
Oh, wow.
and we did a lot. And that was my one thing. Since we were there in October, I'm like, I need to go to Sleepy Hollow. I've always wanted to go. So we took a side trip and took a day and went up on the train and got out a little later than we anticipated. So by the time we got there, it was already starting to get dark and
Oh,
we
wow.
were getting hungry. And it was, I forgot, that how early it gets dark at night during that time of year. So we didn't have a lot of time to explore the town, and we had um, a tour, a night tour of the cemetery on Halloween, and that was the reason we had gone up on that day on that trip, and that was a lot of fun. And so it was just a very brief, like I said, half a day trip. We didn't get to see a whole lot, and so it was fun, but it was kind of disappointing because I really didn't get to see anything. So after that, I really wanted to go back. And so when my cousin and I went back, by that point, I was starting to work on the stories, and I was working on another set of stories as well, a time travel series that I've been working on, and we went to that trip was about a week in Virginia, doing Williamsburg, Colonial
Oh,
Williamsburg, Yorktown, and Jamestown, so that I could get the history for those areas that I could write the series. And again, it happened to be in October. And I just happened to be looking at the dates and the times and everything, and found out that the parade, the Halloween parade in Sleepy Hollow, was going to be the weekend that I was supposed to be in Virginia.
oh,
And so I thought, oh, maybe I could just hop a train and just right up there. And so
yeah.
I did.
Oh, you
I
did.
did
Okay.
I did. So I did plan it out ahead of time, but it was kind of an impromptu last minute thing before the trip. And my cousin lives in North Carolina. So she met me in Williamsburg. I spent the week in Williamsburg and did Williamsburg and Jamestown and all the places in Virginia that I needed to go. And then at the end of the week, we took the train on, I think it was a Thursday or Friday, and we took the train to um, up to Sleepy Hollow and spent the weekend in Sleepy Hollow then.
Oh,
And so it
neat.
was just another short trip, but it was good timing. And the week before, I'm glad I chose the week I did because the week where the weekend before when I was actually starting my trip to Virginia, it had rained, and so they were supposed to have their street festival, I think it was that year, the weekend before. I might be getting it mixed up, but they have a street festival and they have the parade, and they're on opposite weekends. And because of the rain, one of them had been canceled. So they ended up doing both of them the same weekend. So I got to see both of them while
Oh,
I was there.
oh,
So
that's
it was
cool.
it was really exciting to be able to see both of them. Yeah. So it worked out really well.
Yeah. And so while you were in Sleepy Hollow, did anything unexpected happen for you that just as far as either kind of related to the story or just how sometimes when you travel and you're open, you don't have every minute of everyday plan. You're open where, if someone says, "Hey, by the way, this is going on," and you're like, "Oh yeah, sure, let's go do it."
Yeah, a lot of when I travel, a lot of my travel is kind of like that. I'll plan out places that I want to go or things that I want to see. So, for instance, when my friend and I went to New York, we were there, like I said, for 2 weeks. And so before we left, we sat down and we listed out everything we wanted to do. And then we looked at it on a map and said, okay, well, these things work together. These are all close together. So we can have a day where we just do these items, and then we'll have a day that we do these items. And but we didn't plan out like every minute or what day we were going to do what. And we worked in, because it was such a long trip, we worked in a couple of rest days where we could
Oh,
just
good.
freestyle it, and if we needed a break we could just chill and take it easy. And so we would just pick a group of things every night before we went to bed. We'd be like, okay, what do we want to do tomorrow? Let's do the 9/11 memorial tomorrow, or let's do Sleepy Hollow tomorrow. Let's do. And so that's kind of how I plan my vacations. And so it was the same kind of thing when I went to Sleepy Hollow with my cousin. Um, I just kind of wanted to get a feel. I didn't really know what was going on. I knew the parade was going on that weekend. I didn't know about the block party, and my cousin really wanted to see the cemetery,
Oh,
and I wanted to see it in the daylight because I only got to see it at night the last time I
oh,
was there.
right.
So, and that was really cool. But I highly recommend going in the daytime because there's so much to see. You can't really see it. It's so dark there. You can't really get a good feel for it. You can't really see a whole lot. Well, plus it closes once it gets dark. But we were there for the tour, so we were able to be there. But So I really wanted to see that in the daylight, and so we did those things. And then, like I said, the street festival ended up being a surprise, so that was fun. And then I ended up getting sick.
Oh no.
So yeah, so it was not fun, but it worked to be an advantage of all
Okay.
things, which was weird.
Yeah, that is kind of
Um,
odd. But
it is. My cousin ended up having to get back before I did, so I spent an extra day there without her. And on the way back, I was going to take the train because we had taken the train up both times, both with my friend. But the first time I went out, we took the train. And then when my cousin and I went out, we also took the train. So when we went up, um, when I was there with my cousin, I was going to take the train back as well. But it was cold, it was rainy. I mean, it was really cold and it was really rainy. And I was just feeling so awful. I'm like, I do not want to sit on a train with all my luggage and trying to carry all this. And then I have to stop at Grand Central Station and switch trains and
oh,
go and then
right.
find the airport. And it was just, I was being really whiny, to be honest. But like, I just didn't want to deal with that when I wasn't feeling well. And so I checked how much it was going to be for an Uber, and it ended up being cheaper to Uber back than it was to take the train,
Really?
which was really surprising. Yeah,
That's pretty amazing. I would
it
never have
was.
guessed that.
I never would have either, honestly, and it was probably just a fluke. It was probably a one-time thing. I'll probably never find that
Yeah,
again,
exactly.
but it worked. So I'm like, well, okay, that's a no-brainer. So I took the Uber, and I ended up. It was really surprising, and I got to see parts of upstate New York that I wouldn't have imagined because on the train you see like it follows the Hudson River, so you see a lot of the river. And of course, I sit on the side where the water is, so
Right.
I love the
Yeah.
water. So I watched the water the whole way up, and taking the car, we only part of it you could see the water, and otherwise I got to drive through the most beautiful scenery. And
Oh,
especially
wow.
being in October, it was just leaves everywhere, and the granite or the rock and everything that was
Yes.
there. It's just incredibly beautiful that I never would have expected to see and never would have seen on the train. And I spent half the trip just typing on my phone and taking notes about,
Oh, cool.
what I was seeing and how it felt to be there. And so um, I was able to really get a feel for that, and to be able to translate that into the book, and to try and get that feel of being there. So that was a little unexpected for sure.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you did say
Yeah.
like your the series that you're working on, also the first three books takes place in New York State, correct?
Yes. Yes. So that was a little bit more in depth, I guess would be a good word. Um, so the Sleepy Hollow one, of course, is standalone. It's a single book by itself. It's a full story just by itself. But the series has 8 books in it,
Oh,
and the first 3 are all set in various parts of New York. So in the first one, it's about a woman who travels back in time, 21st century woman, modern era, Gen Xer, of course. um, Finds herself traveling back in time unexpectedly and ends up at the beginning of the French and Indian War in 1756. And she's in New York visiting a friend of hers, and so they're in Glens Falls, New York, which is really close to Lake George area.
yeah.
And so there's a little bit of the modern descriptions of the area at that point. And then she travels back in time, and the rest of that book is set, for the most part, it's all set in Fort Edward, Rogers Island, which is the birthplace of the U.S. Army Rangers. Um, and so the first book is pretty much set, for the most part, it's set there with a little side adventures here and there to other places. Also goes into the siege of Fort William Henry during the war, and which is the Last of the Mohicans is based on that siege. So if you're familiar with that story, and then in book 2, it ends up being all over upstate New York. And Western New York as well. It goes as far as Niagara Falls at some point. For the most part, very brief, but there's some Native American villages, the Onondaga, up in um, is it Seneca? I think it's Seneca Lake. Sorry, my mind's just gone blank.
No, it's okay.
I believe it's Seneca Lake, where it's right on one of the Finger Lakes. So she's in the Finger Lakes area a little bit there, um, and then goes down into Westchester County again, which of course is where Sleepy Hollow is. Um, but travels along in Westchester County for a while and goes into that a little bit. And then in the third book, it's all set in New York City, but it's in 18th century New York City. So yeah, kind of all over New York.
Yeah, right. And then since the timeline of going back in time, as part of your research, did you look up like old maps or how did you kind of set the scenes for some of those places?
I did, and so that was really fun. When I worked on book three, where it's set in New York City, I found throughout the writing process for all of the books, I kept looking for maps, any kind of anything I could find. So for book one, I was looking at every map I could find of Fort Edward, which is no longer standing. And Fort William Henry is there, but it's a reproduction basically.
Right.
It's been rebuilt. Um, and but I did find a lot of maps on Fort Edward at different periods. It was under construction pretty much throughout the entire. It was built at the beginning of the war, and it was under construction constantly throughout the war. So the maps kind of differed depending on what year it was, but the basic shape of it was the same. And then by the time I got to New York City for book three, by that point I was looking at all these different maps already, and I found one that was just incredible. It's called the Ratzer map,
Oh.
and it was created by and I forgot his first name, but this guy Ratzer, this gentleman named Ratzer. He surveyed New York City in 1766, which is right before my story takes
Wow.
place.
Yeah.
Um, and it's incredibly detailed and it's huge. It's available through the Library of Congress, but it was hugely helpful in writing the story. It really brought the story to life for me. It because it was so detailed and it shows all the churches. It
Oh,
shows
wow.
taverns. It shows, and you can see a lot of the streets that still exist, Wall Street and Broadway and Queen Street and all these streets that are still there, and the Bowling Green, which is still part of New York City, and so these are all on the map still. So it was really cool to be able to see that, and it's got a little section of Brooklyn on the side, but of course back then on his map he calls it Brookland.
Right, right.
So
Oh,
yeah, so that was fun to
interesting.
see. It was really fun to see that. Yeah.
So did you take
Yeah,
a
what
trip just to go to some of the areas like where the forts were that you referenced?
I did. I did. In fact, if you see behind me, this right here, I guess I should
Yeah.
point this way. So that's the cover of my first book in the series, and that photo was actually taken in Glens Falls, New York. Right, that's the Hudson River,
Oh,
and that's
wow.
actually Haviland Cove State Park. I think it is. I think it's a state park. Um, and that's where in the story, that's where she ends up traveling back in time.
Oh,
And
cool.
so while I was doing research for this story, I took a really long trip. I did a 2 week trip from, started off in Buffalo, went around Niagara Falls area and Buffalo, slowly made my way across the state. Took me about a week to get over to Albany, almost a week to get to Albany. I drove at most maybe an hour and a half each day, some days less.
Oh, well, yeah,
And just
exactly.
every day just would be like, okay, I've seen enough here. It's time to move on. And again, I had my list of places that I needed to hit, and however long it took me, that's how long it took me. And a few places came up that I wasn't expecting. When I got to, I wasn't planning on going to Niagara Falls, but I landed in Buffalo and had the night, and I'm like, why not? I'm here. I
Yeah,
may as well go.
exactly. Right.
So I ended up spending a day at Niagara Falls, and then when I on my way there, I found signs for Old Fort Niagara, which was also of the period of during the it was I think it was built before the French and Indian War, And it was just right up the street from Niagara Falls. I want to say 20 or 30 minutes away. And so I drove up there and spent a good amount of time there, which was really helpful. Really gave me a feel for what life would have been like in a fort at that time. So
Oh,
that
excellent.
was a lot
Yeah.
funner to see than I expected. I'm glad I took the time to go do that. And then I slowly made my way across, and I hit a lot of the museums, a lot of the Native American museums. That was the hardest part to find research on, written research, because a lot of their history prior to the 1800s is oral. So not a lot of it was written. So I really just felt like I didn't have enough just based on what I was finding. So I really wanted to hit some museums and talk to some of the people in person, some of the experts in person. And so every day I was hitting a new museum all the way across the state until I made my way to Albany. And there's one in Albany that I hit too, and was able to go there. And then I spent the weekend in the Lake George area, and again in Glens Falls. I actually stayed in Glens Falls, and that's when I took the photo for the cover of
Wow.
book one. Explored the area again, saw Fort William Henry, and got to see Rogers Island and the area of Fort Edward, which I ended up rewriting a whole scene. Um, the scene that well, one of the scenes set in the modern era, when our main character is exploring the area. Um, I had written it out based on what I had seen of the area on Google Maps and, just
Oh,
online, some of
yeah.
the things I saw. And once I got out there, I'm like, that scene is not going to work. No. So I ended up completely rewriting it once I got home and changed everything about that scene.
Oh, wow.
So now it takes place outside of a restaurant that's there. It's I believe it's called the Anvil Inn restaurant, and so that was really fun to see. Um, and and yeah, so one of the places I stopped, one of the museums that I stopped at, the Native American museums. So in book two, a lot of it is set, like I said, in one of the Native American villages. It's in Onondaga or Seneca um, villages. And I picked a random place, again, based on maps and what I was seeing online. And so I picked a random place around the Finger Lakes area for the story to be set in. That this is where I set this fictional village, this Native
Nice.
American village, was at the base of this lake. And one of the museums I stopped at, every time I stopped, I always looked through all their books to try and get more research. There's a lot of books you can find in museums that you can't find online.
Yes. Oh, definitely. Right.
I spent more time looking through their books than I did looking through the museum, honestly. And I spent almost a full day just sitting there at this one museum. And the women that worked there were incredibly helpful too. But I found this journal. One of the journals I found that I was looking through, it had in the front of it, I was just randomly flipping through, and I saw a map of New York of in the era in mid, I think it was mid 1700s, 1760s. Can't
Oh,
remember the exact
wow.
date of the map, but it was period to the story. So I'm like, ooh, this is great. And
Yeah.
it had all the little villages where villages were located, where they have found archaeology of villages of where all these places were. And so I start looking, and I'm looking for my lake, just
Right. Yeah. It's
all curiosity,
like,
And there was a village right where I said it in the story. So there
oh,
actually was a
wow.
village there. So that
Yeah.
was very accidental. But it was really exciting to be able to see that this village that I made up and just randomly stuck in at the bottom of this lake actually existed. So it was a really exciting find to be able to
Yeah,
see that.
that would be make you feel right. It's that moment of like, oh yes, it's all coming together, all my details. Because with
Yes.
historical fiction, I think that's what really makes it is that you can kind of tell did someone really do the research, or some people that are as readers, we get into the information so much it takes us on another path of like, oh well now I want to learn more about these Native American villages or this particular tribe because I mean, we have no idea in some ways how many tribes were in some of these areas, and they all had their own language. They all had little bit different ways of probably doing things. And
Absolutely. Yeah. And that was one of the hard things too, because I was my research was I was trying to be as specific as I could. So I was in this Onondaga village, and they're part of the Haudenosaunee or the Iroquois, and so I didn't want it, but the Iroquois is made up of six different nations, and so including the Mohawk, which of course everybody's heard of the Mohawk, right?
right.
And but I didn't know how much of that would translate because they were a different people. So I'm like, some of it's going to translate, but not all of it's going to be the same. So I was really trying to be careful about my research that way. I really wanted it to be specific to the Seneca, but it really limited how much I could find. So some of it I did go a little bit broader and went with what I could find. So some of it is a little bit more based in Mohawk or generic Iroquois practices. But where I could, I tried to make it as specific as I could to the Seneca.
So at the end of
So it
each
was,
day, since you knew that you were just kind of like, some days, like you said, you drove more or less, did you, on that trip, then you didn't always know where you were going to spend the night and kind of just winged it as you went? Or,
I did. I did. Yeah, I didn't. So I didn't pre-do and well, I did one because I knew I was going to be in Glens Falls for the weekend. I knew I was going to be there for the whole weekend. So that one I did. I booked an Airbnb before I left,
oh, nice.
and that was it. And even when I left Albany and the New York area, I drove down when I finished in Glens Falls. I drove down to Philadelphia and spent a week in Philadelphia after that. So the whole trip was a 2 week trip for research. But even knowing that I was going to Philadelphia, even then, and I was going to be in Philadelphia for a week, but even then, I still didn't pre-book my lodging. So I didn't book that until I left because I wasn't entirely sure what day I was going to leave
Yeah,
either. So I'm
right.
like, I'm just going to play it by ear, and it turns out it worked really well because when I booked the Airbnb for the weekend, the owners reached out to me the day before I was supposed to leave, and I was kind of on the fence. I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready to leave yet. I may want to spend another day here. I don't know if I'm fully done with my
Right.
research yet. And they reached out and they're like, hey, we have an extra day here. If you want to stay longer, we can give it to you at a discounted rate. And I'm like, okay, yes, please.
Yeah,
So it was kind of a
exactly.
deciding factor. I'm like,
Wow.
okay, so it worked out well. And then as I was driving across, I just drove, and I didn't know how long I was going to be in each place. So whenever I left a spot, that's when I would book a lodging for the night. And like, okay, I'm leaving the area, and this is where I plan on being at the end of the night, so I'll book it. So every night I was just booking a new place every
Right.
night. So
Yeah, that's true. That's where it's like all of our phone apps now are so helpful with travel
yes,
because you can
yes,
check availability or you can call, you can say, can you give me a better price or, you know.
yes. It does make it a lot easier. And I love the flexibility of being able to travel that way. Like I hate being locked in. And um, when I went to Salem, one of the women that was with me, it was kind of a group thing, and one of the women that was with us was she was kind of having a little bit of anxiety because we didn't have a full itinerary
Right.
of, okay, we're going to spend 20 minutes here and 20 minutes there, and we're going to do this. And then I'm like, oh, you're welcome to do that, but I can't. Like,
I
I can't
can't.
travel that way.
Right.
And by the end of the weekend, because that one was a very short trip as well, but by the end of the weekend, she was absolutely floored, and she says, I have never traveled that way, and oh my God, this is the best way to travel.
Well, that's good you converted her. Yeah, because I think
I did.
some
I
people it's
did.
like they want that comfort of knowing like where am I going to be? Where
Yes.
am I going to stay? But if you can have the flexibility, I think it opens up unexpected opportunities to discover something, or you don't feel as rushed if it's a nice day and you want to spend longer wandering around a little town or popping into a random restaurant or coffee shop. Yeah.
Yes, and it's so true. I've seen so many more things by being able to do it that way. There was a lot of things in Philadelphia. I planned out on that same trip, that same research trip. There were a handful of places that I knew I needed to go. But again, I didn't know which days I was going to be there or when or how it was going to work out. But as I was wandering around the downtown area and the historic area, I ran into several things that I didn't even know existed.
Oh, wow.
And so had I been locked in to an itinerary, I would never have been able to have time to explore those places. And some of them gave me more background and more information, more research than some of the places that I planned on going
Oh,
and
wow.
thought I needed, I need research from this place. And, some of them I ended up not getting any research out of, but then the places I didn't know existed, I ended up getting some really good information out of. So, yeah, I'm all about the flexibility when I travel.
No, that's great. So on the research trip, were you pretty much traveling on your own or did someone join you?
I did. I did. My husband came out briefly on the weekend when I was in Albany, which is, like I said, why that was one of the reasons I knew I was going to be there for the weekend. He really wanted to see the old forts, so he came out for a few days. But otherwise, I spent almost the full 2 weeks entirely on my own, and it was bliss.
Nice. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't have to look at someone
I,
and go, "Hey, what do you feel like eating?" It's pretty much
yes,
I'm going to eat when I want to eat. I can stop when I
yes.
want. Yes. So there
There's
is,
something really empowering about being able to travel on your own. It's the freedom and oh gosh, I just can't even describe it. It's so amazing. And for me it was double because since it was for research, when I went on my trip to Virginia, the first trip I went to Virginia to do research to Williamsburg, I was there with a couple of friends. And it was really, really hard because the whole time, I mean, I will stop and I will photograph every single item in a museum when I'm doing research, right?
right.
And and so I felt really bad. Like, and I told them, the friends that joined me on that one, I told them that I was going specifically for research. And they wanted to go anyways, and they're like, "No, you do your thing. We'll be fine. We'll be fine. It doesn't matter. You take it whatever time you need." But I still felt guilty for how much time I was taking.
Right.
So it's hard not to. I'm there for a specific purpose, but I still felt guilty. So doing the research trips in particular, after the Virginia trip, I was like, I'm never taking anybody with me again on a research trip. Like it's too much stress for me. I
Yeah,
don't
for
like feeling
yourself. Right.
obligated
Yeah,
to other
exactly.
people and like, are you guys having fun? You're spending all this time
Right.
and money. Like, I want to make sure they're getting their money's worth too. So being able to do that on my own was definitely a big thing for me. And then once I got out there and actually doing the trip, it was just so much more empowering than I expected it to be. So yeah, it was definitely a good um, choice to do that.
Right. Right. To do it like that. And it may have altered the course of the books in a way too, because like you said, you ended up discovering things, being able to spend more time on things than, like you said, even just having someone that claims that, like, oh yeah, take whatever time you're looking at them, like, yeah, it's
Yeah,
obvious I'm probably spending too much time here.
yeah, yeah. Like I can see you're bored. Okay, it's fine. It's
Right.
fine.
So how much time did you spend? Because now you said the series goes to 7 books or 8 books.
It's 8 books. So it's really weird. So my journey into writing kind of happened very strangely. Um, I've never even remotely had an interest in writing. Quite the opposite. I've hated I hated writing growing up.
Wow. Yeah.
Couldn't do it in school. Anytime we had an assignment, it was the worst. It was the worst subject for me because I could never come up with anything, never had any ideas, could not do it. And just avoided it my whole life. And as I got into my career a little bit more, I do forensics for a living. And as I got into that, I've done a lot more technical writing. I've got several degrees. I've done a lot of research and a lot of, again, the research type of writing, technical writing, things like that. And over the years, I've started to have an appreciation for that style of writing. But creative writing has still never even remotely been on my radar. And then when I took this trip with my cousins out to Salem, the idea came to me for Ichabod's Curse. And at first I wasn't going to write it because again, me and writing, creative writing,
Right.
no. So I gave it to my friend who writes scripts. And I said, "Oh, you should write a script. You should do this and write this as a script." And she just kind of went, "Oh, yeah, okay." And I could tell she wasn't really,
Right.
really excited about it. But she wasn't really all that familiar with the story, and it just wasn't her style of writing. So I thought, well, I'll write a synopsis for you of what I'm thinking. And at first, I wrote a paragraph, and that paragraph turned into almost a full page. And um, it just started getting more and more detailed.
Oh,
And I
wow.
started getting names for the characters and started getting all these things in different directions. Well, how would this work and how would that work? And so pretty soon I was like, maybe I could just write a book and then she could just convert that into a script, you know.
Right.
And
There you
so
go.
I ended up sitting down and working on it as a book. And so it kind of happened very, very strangely, my journey into writing. And I'm sorry, I forgot the original
No, that's
question.
okay. But then to decide to, like you said, if you're not much, you didn't consider yourself much interested in creative writing, but then to like start crafting this, 8 book, series,
Yes.
that's huge.
Yes, it was. And a lot of it was very research driven. That's what I remember where I was going with that story now. Okay. Uh, sorry.
No, that's fine.
Um, so yeah, it was a very weird experience. So I had the idea for Ichabod. I started writing it. I wrote the first chapter, which was set in the modern era, and I started there while I had to do the research because I still had to do the research on the historical side of it. So I started with the modern part of it and wrote the first chapter, and then I started delving into the research more and more, and then I got the idea for the series,
Oh,
and so it kind of came on at the same time,
oh, interesting.
and yeah, and it was really weird, and so I was still trying to focus on the research for Ichabod, and I kept trying to focus, and my mind just kept wandering to this different war. And so again, I'm looking at the research, or I'm looking at information on the War of 1812 for Ichabod. And I started getting the time travel idea. And so then I'm like, well, I'm just going to look this up because I just have this question. So I'm just going to look up this one little thing. And then I'm gonna look up this one little thing, and so it kind of like flowed into. So then pretty soon I was doing the research for the series, and I did some just very basic preliminary research, and it was around the same time that I started getting the ideas for these. Um, was working on those, and I ended up putting Ichabod on pause, and
Oh,
I wrote the entirety of book one over Christmas, over a week,
oh,
during Christmas
wow.
break from work. So it was it was like it was very weird. It was almost like it was an obsession, honestly.
Yeah.
For 2 years, it was a full on obsession. Um, and so I wrote book one, and then I was going to come back to Ichabod. And I did go back and forth with the research a little bit and started doing notes. And so I kind of went back and forth a little bit between them. But the time travel one just kept kind of coming back into the forefront and kept really overtaking everything. Um, and then I knew I wanted to launch Ichabod first because this is also new to me. I'm like, I wanted that one to be almost more like a practice run
Right.
in
Yeah.
a sense.
Right.
So I kind of wanted to work out some of the kinks. So I knew I wanted to do that one first. So I made myself put the time travel one aside and focused on Ichabod and got it when I had gotten to a stopping point with the time travel one. So I focused on Ichabod and got that one put together and then went back to the time travel one. And so all in all, it took me about a year and a half to write all 9 books.
Oh, wow.
Um, if you add in the research, it was another half a year to a year. It was just, like I said, it was an obsession. Every free minute, I was just working on it in some form or another, either doing research or writing or taking notes or something. I would go to bed at night. I wrote half of them on my phone, honestly.
Oh, did
Um,
you? Oh my goodness.
I I would go to bed at night and I would turn everything off. And within 5 minutes, I would have a scene going through my head or
Wow.
something that I'm like, oh, I need to make a note so that I can look that up and I need to look at that later when I have time. And so I would just make notes. And before I knew it, like an hour had gone by and I'm still writing. And I'm like, oh, I really need to go to sleep. I got to get up early for work
Right.
tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
So it really became I don't use that term lightly in this case. It really did become an obsession that it was 24/7 and nonstop. I would dream about it. I would wake up on my weekends. I would write. There were days, most days, I would get up in the morning and I would literally spend the entire day just writing.
Wow.
One day I was at my computer by 6 a.m. and I ate while I was working and I stopped for an hour to eat dinner and I was right back at it. And I didn't go to bed until 1 a.m. that night.
Oh my goodness.
So
Wow.
it was a lot of my weekends were spent that way.
Wow. Yeah.
Just everything else was just put on the back burner while I just focused on writing and research and getting in what I could.
Yeah.
Vacations, I would take vacations and spend it just writing. So,
Well, yeah, it sounds like it. Well, even the research trip, like taking the
yes.
research trip for 2 weeks, that's a long time just to be gone and know, like, I want to get a lot of this done. And
It was. It's not something I'll ever do again. I think by day 10, my brain was starting to fill up a little bit. I was like, oh, I'm starting to not retain as much, and I was physically and mentally exhausted by day 10. So I'm like, and I still
wow.
have four, I think, because I think that one was actually 15 days plus my travel days.
Oh, wow.
So it was, yeah, it was a long time, and I think I'll max out at 10 days next time.
Yeah, just keep like
Because I
shorten
was,
it down a little.
yes, like by the time I walking around Philadelphia by the end of it, I mean I physically hurt. I could barely walk. My hips, my knees, like my feet, everything. Like I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna make it back to my Airbnb. I
Oh
can't.
no.
I'm like, it's less than a mile away, so I can't justify calling an Uber, but I can't make it back.
So what apps do you think you use the most on your research trip?
Oh gosh, definitely Google Google Maps. I use that because I drove for most of it. Once I got to Philadelphia, I ended up turning in my rental car when I found out how difficult it is to park in the city.
Oh, yeah.
That was just a nightmare. So I wanted to keep it there at first because I was going out to Valley Forge and um, oh, I just forgot the name of the other battlefield.
Yeah, there's
There's another
another
battlefield near
site
there.
near there.
Um,
It's
yes,
okay. I can't remember it
that's gonna bug
either.
me. It's out by Germantown. I can tell you the date. It was September 11th, 1777. Yes, I've forgotten the name of it.
That's
It'll
okay.
come to me. It'll come to me. But anyway, so they're just outside of town, and so I wanted to keep the car for those, but after the first day, I couldn't keep the car in the city. It was just too hard. So I gave that up, and I ended up Uber Lyft. I did that out to the other battlefield that I can't think of the name of right now. Um, I did that, and then mostly I just walked around the city otherwise. But all the way across New York, I drove. So having Google Maps was definitely
Oh, yeah.
a must. The other times that I went to Sleepy Hollow, we took the train. So again, it really helped having the apps to help figure out like how to navigate the subway system and the trains. And because it's not just the subway, when you take the train from New York City up to upstate New York, you have to take a different train.
Right.
Um, and I don't remember if we downloaded an app for that or if we just Googled it, but there was a lot of Googling of stuff going on. So,
Well, yeah, and
yeah.
especially, when we're on the West Coast or in Las Vegas, we're not used to taking trains and figuring out a schedule and realizing that, you might have to
Yes.
switch and what station do I have to switch at to get to the right train that I need to go. Yeah, it's a lot of navigating.
Yes, it is. And in fact, now that you say that, yeah, when my cousin and I went to Sleepy Hollow the second time, um, because we took the train up from Williamsburg, so we had to do that was Amtrak, and so
Okay.
we did use the Amtrak app. But then that only took us to Grand Central Station, and then we had to switch. Was it Grand Central? It might have let us off at Penn Station. We had to switch. I think it let us off at Penn, and we had to go to Grand Central, if I'm remembering correctly. And that's where we picked up the train to Tarrytown. And we ended up taking the wrong train.
Oh, did you? Oh no.
Yes, I think we were on an express train and it didn't stop in Sleepy Hollow. So we ended up having to go past Sleepy Hollow
Right.
and then we had to try and find our way back. And I don't remember where we got off. It might have been Croton on Hudson, I think. Um, but yeah, so we ended up getting off at a different place entirely and then had to backtrack. And so we did a ride share to go back because we're like, we're just not even gonna try navigating
Right.
at this point. We're just gonna forget it.
Right.
And so we took a ride share to go back and find our way back. So I'd say those are definitely my two go-tos is Google Maps and ride shares. I go back and forth between Uber and Lyft and I'll just pick whichever one is closer, which one's cheaper, which one's,
Yeah.
sometimes one's easier to find. It's one sometimes there's one in the area on the one app and not in the other. So yeah, I bounce back and forth between those two a lot. But
Yeah.
yeah, those were my primary go-tos.
Do you consider yourself a foodie when you travel, or is it just wherever, whenever?
A little bit of both. I do like, so when I travel, I really like to experience. I don't consider myself a tourist. I love travel, but I don't think of myself as a tourist. So any place I go, I want to know where the locals go, whether
Right.
it's food or anything else. What attractions do the locals go to? What do they go visit? Where do they go? I want to see everything. So I've been to Costa Rica a couple of times, and so that's what I do. Like when I go there, I don't stay in one place. I go and I try to see as much as I can. And I want to see, so like I don't stay in resorts. I
Right.
never ever stay in resorts.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't eat like if it's something I can find at home, I'm like, nope, I don't want it. I want to go someplace different. I want to go someplace that I can't get at home. So
Yeah.
that's generally how I try and travel, regardless of where I am, whether it's in country, out of country, anywhere I go. I am a very picky eater, but not so picky that I can't always find something. So I try and just always go to places um, that are off the beaten path or that are not chain restaurants. So I like to experience, like I said, just anything that I can't get back at home.
Right. So, like when you were doing your research trip and you're driving by yourself, what were some ways that you found a place that was different or local?
So I asked around. A lot of times I'll ask around. When I stayed in Schoharie in New York, that was I think that was the last place I stayed before I hit Glens Falls. There's a lot of caves in the area,
Oh,
and I think I
really?
was there for 2 nights.
Oh, wow.
And so I spoke with the hotel clerk and got recommendations for places to eat, places to see. I really wanted to see some of the caves, but I couldn't make that happen at the time. I did discover I was a little disappointed on that trip. I should have done just a little bit more research because I didn't realize that a lot of places in the area closed down for the winter and they
Oh,
shut down at the end of October, and I didn't realize that. So
oh,
a lot of the places that were on my list that I really wanted to go see for my research were closed when I got there.
oh
So that
no.
was a little disappointing. Had I been there just a few weeks earlier, I would have, or even just days earlier, if I had shifted my trip even just by a week, I would have been able to see it. But I didn't realize that until I got out there. So that was definitely
And
kind
that's
of a rookie
actually,
mistake, but
well, it's kind of eye-opening a little still in the United States too, because we think that so many places now, people are going to go there or eat there or have, do things year round. It doesn't occur to us that
yeah,
like stuff is kind of seasonal sometimes, that they might just shut their, I mean, I ran into that in upstate New York too, where, we were getting to the, and this was like in late October one year. I was up there with my dad, and it's like we'd get to a place and they'd be like, oh yeah, tonight's the last night. We only have these things on the menu. And we would be like, oh, well, good, we made it in here.
yeah,
Might not have much
yeah,
to
and
eat in this town.
right. And I found that a lot more in the Lake George area, that area in general. It's a little bit more of a resort kind of town, I guess. Probably because of the lake, it's a lot
Oh,
of,
yeah.
summertime type stuff. So I was really surprised to see some of that stuff closing down. And I had planned that trip because and I planned it the way I did because and the time of year that I did, it was all based on an event in Philadelphia that I wanted to hit. And that was
Mm.
initially that was my whole reason for going was I wasn't going to do the New York side of it at all, honestly. I was going because they do an event in Philadelphia every year. It's called Occupy Philadelphia,
Oh,
and it's where reenactors come in and they are British redcoats and they occupy the downtown area. And so it's a lot of fun and it's sponsored by one of the museums there. And so I wanted to see that to get a feel for, again, just being around that in person, getting a feel for the way people are dressed and the things they're carrying and doing
yeah,
and
that's
whatnot.
true.
And to kind of get that live feel for the era as best we can in this time period. Um, and so that kind of set the parameters for my trip. And so I started off, and that was in November. They do that in November every year. And so, well, I think it's in November every year. It was the year I went. Um, but so that determined my date, and that ended up being my end date. That ended up being the very last thing I did on the trip was the Occupy Philadelphia event. And everything I planned up to that point was before that. And so my trip across New York was at the end of October. It was the last
Oh,
week in October. And so it
right.
was based on that event. And so that I think that's partly also why I didn't look at dates. I didn't think about things
Well,
being
yeah, you
closed.
wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't have either. It's not like winter,
Yeah.
winter yet. I mean,
Right. Right. Well, for us,
yeah,
it is
exactly.
there. It is there. When I got to Buffalo, I was a little surprised. I've lived in a lot of different places and spent a lot of years in Utah. And you see, you live in places where it snows and you see little markers. I don't know what they're called, but the little poles on the side of the road that have
Oh,
the
right.
reflectors and stuff on them that, so you can still see the edge of the road when it snows.
Right.
And
Yeah.
they're usually, maybe 3 to 5 feet high or whatever the height is. And when I got and usually they're up the canyons. The places that I've lived, they're usually just up the canyons, and you don't really see them around town. And I got to Philadelphia or to Buffalo. When I first landed in Buffalo, they were everywhere. They were all over the city. They were in parking lots all over the
Oh,
city. Like they're
wow.
not up a canyon.
Yeah.
And not only that, but they're huge. They're like I'm looking at them going, that's got to be 8 to 10 feet high. Like, are you
Oh
kidding
my
me?
gosh. Yeah, really.
I know this. I know this on an academic level. I know they get a lot of snow, but I'm glad I wasn't there for it because
Yeah,
even just
no.
seeing that in person, I was like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if I can deal with that, right?
Right, right. So it makes sense that the Lake George area, I mean, I don't know how much snow they get compared to Buffalo, but it would make sense that they're shutting down in the wintertime if that's how much snow they're getting.
Yeah, exactly.
Not something we think about here in Las Vegas.
No, not at all. No, no, exactly. So really quick, what's on your do you have travel planned for 2026?
I do. What am I doing? I have a few. I have a very brief trip to Orlando coming up, another cousin trip
Oh,
coming up
fun.
to North Carolina. We're going to go spend some time in North Carolina around Asheville and Raleigh.
Oh, nice.
Um, and then There was something else I was gonna do. Probably a cross country trip with my brother and his wife, actually. Yeah, we're driving out to Michigan over the summer. So
Oh, that'll be
yeah,
neat.
that'll be
Oh,
fun.
yeah.
I do. I love road trips. They're so much better than flying any day,
Yes. Oh,
hands
any
down.
day. If you can do a road trip, I agree. You can take,
Yes,
it's just less stressful. I mean, I know flying
yes,
gets you to your starting point sooner, but I don't know. I just have a lot of anxiety now about flying and getting yourself
yes. Well,
packed, and I don't
yeah.
know.
I don't like being crammed in with that many other people and it honestly flying like I get so sick when I fly. I just the whole day is just ruined for me. Even if it's an hour flight, like the whole day is just ruined. But road tripping, it allows for so much more flexibility and impromptu things. You can do a lot of little side trips here and there and you just see so much more instead of the inside of an airplane and
Right.
clouds. You
Yes.
know, there's so much more you can see when you're road tripping and I did one by myself a few years back where I was driving across country and helped a friend of mine move out to Philadelphia and drove back on my own. And so that was, I kind of did that the same kind of like my New York trip where I just drove during daylight hours and I didn't even pay attention. I got up when I got up when I woke up and hit the road when I was ready and I just drove until it was starting to get dark and as the sun was starting to go down, I would be like, okay, I need to start thinking about where the next place is and where I'm going to stop for the night and break out the travel apps, trying to find Travelocity and Orbitz and all those, trying to find hotels for the night. And that's the other one. I do use Orbitz a lot for hotel stays. Um, and then and then just plan it out and I always stop when I'm road tripping. I always try and stop. I try not to drive at night.
Yeah.
I don't like driving in unfamiliar areas at night, so I try to avoid it in general. But when I'm traveling, it's you see so much more. And if it's dark, there's nothing to see.
No, there's
So
nothing
it
to
kind of takes
see.
away,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, it kind of takes away a lot of the excitement and adventure for me. So I definitely prefer being on the road during the daylight hours.
Yeah,
So
I agree. And then get your rest at night or plan,
yes,
plot out your next days, like which roads should I take to get
exactly.
where I need to go.
Exactly. And that's another one because I do GPS everything. And so there's a lot of times. Oh, that was another one that I did, in fact, on my New York trip. I highly recommend turning off toll roads.
Oh, yes.
So I didn't realize that when I got out there. I had completely forgot because again, I've spent so long on the West Coast that I'd forgotten about toll roads out east.
Yes.
And so my first day, I went through a couple of toll roads, and I thought, you know, I'm going to turn that off because I'm going to be out here for 2 weeks. That's gonna add up really fast. So I turned that off on the GPS, and I didn't think about what that would entail and what that would mean. And what I found was I was driving through tiny little
Oh, yes.
rural towns that I had no idea even existed, like way off the beaten path. There were times where I'm like, I'm checking the maps to make sure I'm not lost because
Right?
I'm like, is
Exactly.
this really like 30 miles an hour speed limits, you know? And I'm just like, there's nothing here.
Right, exactly.
But it was really cool. That actually made for some really fun adventure. Like I saw so much more than just what I would have seen on taking the freeways and you know, again, you don't see as much on the freeway as you do taking those side
Yes.
roads and um drove through some really cute little towns that I never would have even known were there. Got to see a lot of really fun stuff by doing that. So I highly recommend if you're using Google Maps, turn off the toll
Yeah.
roads.
Right, me too. Because you will. That's what takes you through the interesting little small towns. You might
Yes.
see a little farm stand or just anything that you might
Yes.
be like, oh, that looks really cool. I'm gonna pull over. That you would have just gone right by on the main roads because the toll roads don't take you by, through the little towns.
Exactly. And you're on the freeway, so okay, where are we going to stop to eat? Well, now you have to just pull over on an off ramp and it's going to be chain restaurants and you know the same old
Yeah.
stuff again and it just you know, you go through those little towns and you like you said there's a little farm stand right there and it's like, "Ooh, I can pick up some local honey or some
Yeah.
local whatever." And you know,
Yeah.
you never would have seen otherwise. So yes, and it takes a lot longer sometimes, but sometimes the time frame was about the same. Sometimes it was significantly longer, but it was worth every minute.
Yeah, definitely. Totally agree. Well, this has been so much fun chatting, Veronique. And you're going to be back at Copper Cat Books on January 24th.
Yes.
And what will you have for the readers if they want to stop by that day?
Yes. Well, so Coppercat Books has they do still have my Ichabod's
Yes.
Curse in stock.
Yep.
So that's always there. But I will have my new book. This is
Yay.
the first book in the series. The Pulled Through Time is book one. The series is called Time and Other Lies. Um, and it's like I said, it's the time travel one. So this is the first one. It launches on this Tuesday, actually. It launches in just a
Wow.
couple of days.
So
So that's
exciting.
exciting. It is. It's on my website right now, vhbooks.net. And it'll be in Coppercat on the 24th of January. And I'll be doing a signing and have some of the books for sale. So come to Coppercats and come get them.
Yes, I
So I'm
agree.
really excited about the series. It was really fun to research. I had a lot more fun researching it than I thought I would. Um, Retained a lot more than I thought I would, except for the name of that battle that's going to
It's
drive me
okay.
nuts. But
That's all right. And your website again was vhbooks.net, you said?
vhbooks.net, yes, yes, and it was fun. There was a lot of things I found when I was researching Ichabod, tied back into the Revolutionary War. And there were a lot of things that Brandywine, the Battle of Brandywine. I knew
Oh,
I'd
okay.
remember it. I had to remember it. So there's a lot of Easter eggs that kind of
Yes.
tie Ichabod into the series as well. And Ichabod, who was a real person, his father was at the Battle of he was either at Brandywine or Germantown. Now I can't remember, but he was actually injured in one of those battles. And both of those battles are in the series, and a lot of the other things kind of show up and make a little appearance in the series, and that was really fun. Little Easter eggs here and there, trying to
Yeah.
tie the two stories together, and yeah, it was a lot of fun to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's great. I highly recommend Veronique's books, especially I blew through Ichabod's Curse. I recommend it to anyone that's come into the bookstore. So if you are local to Las Vegas or plan to be here around January 24th, we highly recommend you stop by or go to vhbooks.net. And Veronique, I'm sure, will be happy to autograph one and get it shipped out to
Absolutely.
you.
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you so much, Veronique. This has been
Yep.
fabulous. Look forward to
It has
chatting
been fun.
again.
Thank you.